These peach cookies weren't invented at the peak of the pandemic's as a cake craze, nor during the 2000s French patisserie trends. They came about during mid-19th century Italy, where realism transcended far beyond mere imitation. Even now, we feel the residual appeal of a hyperrealistic dessert, in part due to its deception and undeniable artistry. But how did it all start, and why did it resurface in 2020 of all years? T-minus a few years to the pandemic, a small group of pastry chefs in France foregrounded Trompe pastries, meaning trick the eyes. The aforementioned term originally refers to paintings riddled with optical illusions, either by skewing perspectives or by blurring the line between what's painted and what's real, through sheer accuracy and artistry. However, what is nowadays associated with artisan cuisine and car mukbangs had considerably humble beginnings. The concept of realistic fruits can be traced as far back to 12th century Sicily's frutta di martorana, intricate little marzipan fruits invented in a Benedictine nunnery. Local legend has it that in Palermo sat a dazzling garden, which bore fruits that were a sight to behold. It was tended to by the nuns of a convent, colloquially known as La Martorana. A senior clergyman at the time, catching news of the resplendent garden, decided to visit it for himself. There was a small catch though. He planned his visit in the middle of autumn when the garden was barren. To avoid disappointment, the nuns of the convent took it upon themselves to sculpt realistic fruits out of almond paste and hung them outdoors. The clergymen found their handiwork so fine that he encouraged them to sell their creations, and thus the tradition began. Come the Renaissance, marzipan was being used as a medium to sculpt Greek figures by none other than Leonardo da Vinci. How about that for realism? Yet, today's subject wasn't intended as an amusing change of routine for the bourgeoisie. It was instead the first step towards peace during a period of political unrest, a symbol of creation in otherwise destructive times. It's 1871, and Italy has just recaptured Rome after a century of piecemeal attempts at unity. Despite the acquisition of crucial territories, true reunification had only just started. Each land won had its own customs and dialect. Corruption undermined the efforts of developing the Mezzogiorno, and economic disparities escalated into regional tensions. As Massimo Desailly stated, "We made Italy. Now we must make Italians." The aforesaid quote was particularly relevant when it came to the national language, for a paltry fraction of the citizens actually spoke modern Italian, which is the Tuscan dialect, and it was in Tuscany itself that patriotism grew after a century of uncertainty. First served at the Locanda Contrucci Inn located in Prato, Tuscany, these sweet peach cookies known as Pesche Dolci were invented as part of the grander search for a new Italian identity. They were originally constructed of two hemispherical brioche buns joined by a sweet pastry cream filling, which was then dyed red via a spice-sweet liqueur dubbed alkermes, and finally rolled in granulated sugar to imitate a luscious peach. Realism was a cornerstone of the unified Italian zeitgeist, but while some clung to the gritty truth, others oxymoronically used hyperrealism as an escape from reality, as seen in the costume painter subculture of the time. One notable example is Vittorio Reggianini's depictions of heavily romanticized and almost frivolous young subjects draped in hyper-realistic fabrics. Both Reggianini's work and the Pesche Dolci are pinnacles of craftsmanship, reflecting not the musings of a privileged class, but instead the hopes of average individuals for a prosperous future. Modern iterations of Pesche Dolci have carried on their happy connotation, with the confection nowadays served at weddings or baby showers. However, the recipe varies today, with the brioche base being switched for a butter cookie, and modernized filling options such as jams or chocolate hazelnut spread. The on-screen rendition of the classic Italian treat is refined sugar-free, dairy-free, and gluten-free for those blessed with culinary proclivities but cursed by allergies like yours truly. The base is a sort of homage to marzipan fruits, as it's a simple yet decadent almond cookie. They're carved and subsequently piped with the second component, a peach jam. The jam filling is made of a naturally saccharine peach variety known as Saturn peaches. Both the jam and dye mixture are tinted with homemade beetroot syrup. Worry not, there's no beetroot earthiness after hours of reducing your beet juice, just a slight sweetness and its characteristic pink hue. You can infuse the syrup with the same spices as the alkermes liqueur if you truly fear the beet. If you would like to take the peach illusion further, you can paint the outside of each cookie half with more of your syrup, taking care to gently dab around the edges with a clean brush to smooth out the pink into a makeshift gradient. They're then rolled in sugar-free granulated sugar, though I typically use desiccated coconuts instead. However, the coconut coating loses points in both verisimilitude and traditional accuracy. Additionally, they impart a distinct flavor that takes away from the peach aspect of this dish. Top with a food-grade leaf of choice. I used the tiniest mint I could find because I like the extra challenge of making miniature food fit for a family of borrowers. Now back to the video. The final facet of this puzzle is how it all ties back to 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic posed a threat to people of all demographics, with permanent damage felt globally in every nook and cranny. Beyond the devastating loss of life was the looming sense of uncertitude. What's going to happen next? The dreadful feeling was analogous to that of Italians in the mid-19th century, as we've discussed at length in the previous section. And like the Italians, we were all widely different individuals united by the same plight. We were alone together, holed up in our homes, but somehow even more connected than before through the internet. Therefore, it should come as no shock that the contemporary reprisal of culinary whimsy came after a period of similar collective struggle. The cake content's inoffensive nature was a much required break from global news sources, which engendered spiraling thoughts on the gravity of the virus. Furthermore, it was a fun topic to bring up with loved ones since there were no longer any outside interactions to discuss, and somehow the cake or fake stimulating puzzle format that had people guessing aided the world in passing the time pseudo-productively. Just why is it that in both scenarios art provided relief? One argument could be that observing intricate art forms is not about the object at hand, but rather the awe-inspiring skills behind them. Hyperrealistic cakes reflect the culmination of hours of hard work, or better yet, centuries of passed down know-how. To see others build forward during a period of stagnation helped renew one's waning faith in humanity. It proved that there were still those who would persist against what seemed like the end of the world as we knew it. Yes, artists might not hold the power to end the pandemic, but conversely, artists alone have the power to eternalize a civilization through such a catastrophe. Vesuvius burned down Pompeii, but its art, and by extension its story, ultimately survived. Perhaps it's part of the indomitable human spirit that human beings find hope even in a seemingly silly trend. The pessimistic view on the matter would challenge the effort of trying to move such a Sisyphean burden in the first place. It's akin to carving your way out of prison with a plastic spork, futile but somehow dedicated. What's more, those quarantine-era cake artists weren't just piecing together the food equivalent of a plastic spork, they were upholding traditions while simultaneously testing the limits of modern-day gastronomy. And those are marginal better odds. So if you were to take away anything from today's video, let it be the fact that artists deserve what's due. They brought us together at a time we couldn't be further apart. To conclude, there's a sense of undeniable solidarity in the fact that no matter who you are or where or when, our species is amused by the same subject matter. I'm personally discovering that I share a lot with a Benedictine nun apparently, so if you'd like to join me in my findings or perhaps hear more of my rambling, let me know. I would much appreciate it. Before we bid one another farewell, can you name all the historical figures in this video? A substantial amount of the collaged figures was deliberately placed with relevance to the scene they appeared in. Watch the clips to get further clues on this little game. With that said, see you next time.